All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode here on the Fit Father Project podcast. Again, my name is Dr. Anthony Balduzzi. I'm the founder here at the Fit Father Project, the host of this podcast, and I'm super excited and honored today to have a friend and a dear program member, and I'll truly say a veteran of the Fit Father Project, almost 3 years strong today, Dustin Reichmann. Thanks for coming on the show, my friend. To kick this off, I would love for you to introduce yourself, your name, your age, where you're from, a little bit about your family, and then I want to get into your origin story and how you found the Fit Father Project.
Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Anthony, it's a real honor to be on with you. I'm ecstatic. I've got to listen to a few of the previous interview episodes, and it's literally like listening to brothers. Yes, I knew these guys' stories, but to hear it go in depth, and it's like, I know that guy, it's kind of a funny feeling to hear them being interviewed. So yeah, I'm Dustin Reichmann. I live in a town called Glen Carbon, Illinois. It's a suburb of St. Louis, Missouri. I'm almost 42. I'll be 42 next month. And yeah, I've got a beautiful wife and 3 kids, ranging from 16, which is hard to say, down to 11.
Nice. Busy house.
Very busy house.
You have, I believe, I know a little bit about your family, but 2 girls and a boy.
You got it.
And so, yeah, so you got some teenagers. So you're a busy man. And I know you're also running businesses. So I think this is what I know about your story, really what I want to unpack, because I think it's going to be so valuable for guys. You started this program in Thanksgiving of all times of 2018. Why'd you start? Where were you at your life at that point in time? What was going on?
Yeah, so 2018 was just a wild year. I had a 18-year engineering career. So I have a master's degree in engineering, was a consultant, the proverbial 50, 60-hour work weeks. I was managing people, and I knew I was getting burnt out from that. I'd also always had side hustles, various businesses, various writing projects, creative outlets. So in 2017, I knew it was like time to just try, like I need to go try doing this on my own. I need to get away from the engineering, at least take a break. And so I worked myself to the bone, basically kind of doing consulting at work, at engineering work, and then doing marketing consulting and growing my own businesses for really the last 6 months of 2017. It was like 2 more than full-time endeavors. And of course, all the family things going on at the same time. But I did it. And so like January 2018, I gave my notice. And by February, I was quote unquote free, at least from the engineering career. And my wife was a stay-at-home mom. She's since returned to the workforce as a special education teacher. But there was a lot of pressure, right? So I'm like, I'm going to leave this great career, all the benefits, to go do my own thing. My wife, wasn't generating an income. And so 2018 was a wonderful year, one of the best years of my life in hindsight, but it was probably the most stressful year of my life. And so I was just grinding through that year, and the weight was just, continuing to add on. I was trying to still have, some exercise, but I was not eating well at all. I was, I think it was just mostly the stress. It's like I get a pit in my stomach thinking about those months. And so I turned 39 that July, and I realized I was not in great shape. Kind of heading into the fall, I'm like, I hear a lot of stories. I'm kind of on the younger end of maybe of some of the people in the Brotherhood, but I also have a kind of the opposite doctor story that a lot of people have. So I decided I'd never hardly been to a doctor for a wellness check. I actually have a personal friend who is a doctor. So I was like, will you be my doctor? And I went and got the normal blood work. But I actually went into that, and that was, in that late fall 2018, where I knew I was overweight, and I knew I was very, very low in energy and just stressed to the bone. And I actually went into there hoping that my test results were going to show I had like low testosterone. So I'm like, well, I'm almost 40. I'm under all this stress. That's probably why I've lost my mojo and why I'm so tired all the time and feeling so stressed. And he says, no, your numbers are perfect, man. I'm like, dang, that means it's my fault. Like, that means I have to actually do something without, just replacing testosterone. So I think that was one of the big catalysts. And then, as luck would have it, as God's grace would have it, I guess. I was listening. I listened to a lot of podcasts, a lot of business podcasts, and I heard you, and I heard you being interviewed by Ryan Daniel Moran on his podcast, and you just struck different. Like, I understood you were marketing. You were talking about your story, which is super compelling to me. And I knew you had a business that you're marketing. That's one of the reasons you're doing outreach, is to let more people know about what you're doing. But again, it struck different. You seem very genuine. So I went and checked it out, and I did the freebies and the Apex 7 workouts and the meal plans. It just made sense to me. So I said, yeah, I'm going to do this. And then my typical style would be, like most people, I'll do it January 1st. But I was like, really sick of the way I feel. I was 237 pounds. I'm like by far the heaviest I'd ever been in my life. I said, I'm going to do it like 2 day whenever I
Mhm.
committed to it. So I signed up. It happened to be Thanksgiving week. I think it was like Tuesday. It was like a random, Tuesday in November. And I did it. I still had Thanksgiving dinner, but I did it kind
Mhm.
of the way you advised. Like limiting the damage. And
Mhm.
yeah, I guess the rest is history. We can obviously talk about all the things that happened in 2018 with business and life, but in short, that was really it. It was just kind of the low point of my health, the high point of
Mhm.
stress, and this, kind of facing the fact that I actually have good health. Like I have good blood pressure, I had decent cholesterol. I don't have like excuses for why I should be fat and tired. So I need to do something about it myself.
Yeah, but you were able to find some motivation through that combination of factors. The doctor's visit helped, but in the opposite way of many guys, it was like, actually, man, these are all good, but you still feel like crap, so you need
Right.
to make a change. And I think it's very powerful that you chose to follow through immediately during that Thanksgiving time, because that's a powerful decision. And I think it helped you build a lot of momentum. And I know that carried you through. So tell me, at this point, I imagine the stress didn't just magically vanish from your life when you started this program. So, what was the beginning of your Fit Father journey like in terms of the changes you were making with your nutrition, with your exercise, sleep, hydration, etc.? And how were you making those happen when your life was still just as busy? You're starting your businesses, you're making this career shift, you still have the family you have to feed. So,
Yep.
what kind of things did you actually start, like tangible action items?
Yeah, I mean, you make a great point. If anything, the business activity, the the potential stress associated with that increased. Actually, 2019, I traveled more than ever for one of my brands that we'll talk about, but I was still able to maintain it even going to 12 like 4 to 6 day long trade shows that year. So what was
Mm-hmm.
different was the boundaries I set for myself, the things that became non-negotiables. The big one would be getting up, at a consistent time. In my case, like 5:30, and making the first thing I do my workout, because I always had great intentions. It's like I'm going to run today, but now it's 6 o'clock, and I've got something. I got to get this email out. Well, now it's 7 o'clock, and someone's texting me they need to talk, and now it's 9 o'clock, and I have a Zoom meeting, and by the time you look up at 6 o'clock at night, there's been no workout. You've not taken care of your nutrition. So I think that doing exercise first, having a really consistent plan to follow, the structure of the Fit Father program. And I think especially for me, phase one, the simplicity of the workouts. It was like, look, this is going to take me 30 minutes. Like I can actually get that done. It's only going to be 6 in the morning at that point. Like I still have the whole day to get all my other tasks done. The one that I don't even think about anymore, but it's completely automatic, and I think it makes a huge difference in my nutrition is the morning protein shake. It's more than a protein shake. It's got cacao and chia seeds and lots of different things that just gives me that consistent morning boost. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
always the only thing I ever eat in the morning. My wife and
Yeah.
I just celebrated our 20th anniversary, so we went away for 4 days to Lexington, Kentucky. I brought my blender, I brought some coconut milk, and it's like I just did it.
Yeah.
Like that's what it's just part of who I
That's
am
what you
now.
do.
Whereas that
Yeah.
used to be a real uh, inconsistent part of my day. I might have not eaten breakfast, or I might have had waffles, or I might have had chocolate chips and pancakes. Like it was random. Likewise is lunch. So for me, in the past year or two, I haven't been home alone hardly at all because my kids have been home a lot from school. But generally, I was working from home alone, and so it's kind of an outlet. I would go out to lunch a lot, and I wouldn't make the best choices. And if you go out to restaurants, even if you think you're eating healthy, a lot of times it's not nearly as healthy as it would be if you're
Yeah.
eating those whole foods at home. So I basically just cut down greatly the amount of lunches out, and just had very normal, consistent lunches, not necessarily always the healthiest foods, but whole foods. I also did the
Mm-hmm.
meal prepping, meal planning. So kind of Sundays became and remains a time where my wife and I look at the dinners for the rest of the whole week, and then I make sure I've got proteins and things in place so I can just do an easy lunch. And what I found
Yeah.
is it sounds kind of boring, like, oh, I have a shake every morning and I eat like the same couple things every day for lunch, but it's actually great, and it takes less time and it takes less mental bandwidth. Like I don't have to think about those
Yeah.
things, they just happen. And then, part of our lifestyle is we try to eat every night as much as possible, especially with the 16-year-old now working and everything. We try to eat dinner together every night as a family. And so I'm not real picky about dinner, so if we're having, you know, steak, that's great. If we're having some pasta, that's okay too. I just kind of, we'll have pizza, but maybe instead of 5 pieces of double pepperoni pizza, I'll have two and a salad, and
Yeah.
so because of that, all those were immediate changes. And so at first they seemed like a big deal, but I'm looking back 2.5 years, which it doesn't seem at all like it's been 2.5 years. And 90% of the stuff I started doing that first month, I just continued to do. Some of my workouts have varied. Some of my goals, as far as the things I enjoy doing for my fitness and the types of events I like to be in, those things have evolved, of course, over time. So maybe I'm not doing as much resistance work as I should be or was, but the nutrition is just kind of there. I don't have to think about it
Yeah.
much, and the workout habit is there. I basically work out 6 days a week all the time,
Nice.
and it's just part of what I do now. So,
Man, powerful stuff here. Like you really established this rhythm, and they weren't big changes. You got up a little earlier and you set aside that sacred time in the morning for moving your body. You had breakfast afterwards, which is really convenient.
yep.
And for you as an entrepreneur, businessman, family man, like the fewer decisions you can make around things outside of like your core things is good. It keeps you more consistent, less willpower battles. So that standardized breakfast shake, it's not surprised I do it every single morning too,
Yeah.
right? I mean, because it's really good. And I love that you shared the fact that you dialed in those first two meals really with some meal prep like breakfast and lunch, and you're a little more flexible with dinner, because I think that's a big objection a lot of people have. It's like, oh, I have a family, my kids aren't going to eat the same way. Well, it's like, look, you don't have to be perfect.
Right.
You just have to make better choices clustered over a long period of time. And if you can control breakfast, lunch, and get a workout in, man, you're maybe 75% of the way there.
Yep.
And you can sustain that, and you got it. So that's really powerful to hear. How did your fitness change? You started around 237, right?
Yep.
Around that weight.
Yep.
And I know you got down to around 200 at like the low weight after going through the Fit Father 30X, all the phases of the fat loss program. What was the progress like with your changes in your fitness and your well-being? Because I imagine the workouts when you started them were fairly tough. We hear guys talk about, their first Apex 10, that metabolic workout in the first phase of Fit Father 30X. And they're like, whoa, man. Like I thought this was going to be easy. It was tough. It's simple, but it's tough. How did your fitness change as you started moving your body more?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I'm kind of looking over on my other screen because I kept a journal for like the first 300, almost full year, like 340 days. I would check in. I was getting body scans, but day one, November 19th, 2018, my weight, my waist size that I took photos, and I did Apex 10 workout with 20-pound dumbbells. I made it to 10 and then had to quit because I felt like I was going to pass out. And then 1 month later in December, dominating Apex 10 with 25-pound dumbbells, finished under 30 minutes. Big 5 workouts are good. So it's just, that's 1 month. And I went from basically
1
not
month,
being able to
and that's
finish.
up and down.
Yeah.
You went up and down. So like you doubled your work with more weight in 1 month.
And I remember always posting in our Brotherhood, Facebook group. It was like shocking to me because I'm fairly analytical. I think systematically, that I have these journals, and I'm like, how is it possible that I was like 45 minutes 2 days ago and now I'm 41 minutes, finishing these workouts? Because you're kind of, in some of the workouts, the metabolic workouts, you're basically competing against yourself for time. And it was like, it blew my mind how quickly some of this progress came. And I loved showing those photos, and just because I knew that I was pushing myself just as hard to with the intensity, but like the minutes were just dropping like crazy. So that's kind of the snapshot of that first month. But in general, it's funny, like my background, I hated running. I played football in high school, but never enjoyed the running part. So I think it was around 2012. My brother-in-law, who's much younger than me, asked me to be on his Tough Mudder team. And so if people aren't familiar, Tough Mudder's an obstacle course. They're usually about a half marathon in length, like 18, 20 obstacles. Fairly taxing. You're not running constantly, but you need to have good cardiovascular health. And like, I told him I'd do it, kind of the bravado. I'm like, well, yeah, he's my little brother-in-law. He's not going to show me up.
Yeah.
So then I realized the mistake I had made, because I don't run at all. So I could not run a mile. And that's the honest truth. And I took off running. And
this was before the program?
What's that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You couldn't run a mile before the program?
Oh yeah. This is like 2012. So I did it though. And I finished the Tough Mudder. So just to give people an idea of my abilities and everyone's abilities that are not tapped. So like 2 years later, I ran a marathon. So I went from not being able to run a mile to running a marathon. This is all before Fit Father Project, but and then I ran some more half marathons. So like I had a base of fitness, but and if I look back, I've charted my weight for like 10 years. Very analytical again, but so I
Mhm.
can look in this app and it's like up and down and up and down. I'd be 220 and I'd be 200. And I'd be 220 and I'd be 200, like every year, every 6 months. And so this was different though, because when I was like, I wasn't 220, I'd blown way past that. I'm at 237. I hadn't been running. And so that's what's amazing to me. Like my looking back, I've basically been between 200 and 205 90% of the time, since I got there that first time. I'll have occasional times where I'm like 210. I'm sitting here today, I'm probably closer to 210 because I weigh myself every day. Because we had that weekend away in Lexington. It's been a stressful week, but I know by next week I'll be back to 205, right? And if I was training for an event, I'll be down to 200. So that's like I'm very goal oriented and achievement driven, and so that can work really harshly with some people, with me, with my psychology, because it's like, oh, I messed up once, I quit. Or, well, now if I miss my training run, I'm just not going to do that race. Like there's this perfectionism. So what the program has helped me do is realize that like, no, I've got sacred parts of my routine and I've got kind of sacred boundaries and where I want to be with my weight and my fitness, but there's some flexibility there. Like this is my whole life. This is not, you can't just get everything done in one month. So yeah,
Mhm.
since then, I mentioned some of my fitness goals changed when we started having shutdowns and things with the pandemic last year. I really just turned heavy into running as like an outlet because I was stuck in my house with three kids and my
Yeah.
wonderful wife who was teaching virtually from home. It was maddening because I'm used to working alone in the house, so I would go on long runs frequently at any time of the day, even if it was hot out. So I dropped down below 200 and actually ran my fastest half marathon time last year by
Nice.
myself because the race I was supposed to be in got canceled. So I just did it on my own. And so I was really proud of that though. Like I'd always wanted to get under 2 hours and I ran like a 150. Like it was substantially better.
Nice.
And yeah, and so then last fall I did a 4-day backpacking trip out in Wyoming, very rugged and stuff I would have never dreamed of doing. I had no interest in doing. And so I don't know. I guess you're asking me what kind of my fitness. It's always been like up and down. It's been very event focused. Now it's much more consistent. So like I ran a trail half marathon race like a month ago, and I honestly barely trained for it. I probably was not that responsible of me, but I knew I could do it. So it was like, it's not gonna be my fastest time. I'm just gonna do it. So I'm gonna train for a few weeks heading into that, and the base level of fitness is just kind of there now.
A couple things I want to pull out there because there's a lot of great stuff in there. One, you're an analytical guy. You like to track.
Yeah,
It is so important if you're that type of guy that you get these tracking systems in place because it ends up seeming like it's your guardrails where those it's like the course corrections, like the plane is drifting off course. You don't do a full U-turn. You just kind of hit this bumper and you're able to course correct. So the daily weighing, we're huge proponents of, and I'm so glad you continue to do that.
yeah,
And now also, I love that you have the confidence in your system. They're like, oh, 210, no big deal. I'll be back to 205 in a week, from cleaning up my eating, not eating out as much. Maybe I do a fast. Maybe I, go a little harder on some of these metabolic workouts, drink a little more water, done. Like that's incredible. I'm curious because you're running your businesses at this time. How did your change in your fitness, because you're losing 37 pounds or so
yeah.
around there. How does that impact the way you show up with your work and your family? But let's talk about business first because you have two brands and I want to shout them out. We have Fire Creek Snacks. You guys have amazing, basically like healthy, high protein, low carb snacks that you can take on the go, which is an important part of any healthy routine. You got to know what your go-to snacks are. And you also do engage marriage stuff. You help people have better marriages and communicate better in their marriages. So you're doing these things on the side. They're starting to get more traction. How did the changes to your sacred routines impact your business life? We'll start there.
Absolutely. It was a direct positive impact. I mean, it gave me so much more self-confidence, mental clarity. Again, the consistency of getting it done in the morning and not having to think about it. Basically the time I gained back by not having to think about my first two meals of the day. I've
Mhm.
I've kind of evolved into this constant intermittent fasting. I mean, I basically eat usually my shake. I usually work out fasted and I have a shake at like
Mhm.
10 and we usually get dinner at like
Nice.
6. And that's kind of my eating window. Um, so again, it's like I used to put so much thought and effort into eating and like planning meals that they all had to be individual. So there's just, I have more time, honestly, by investing this time. It actually produces more time. I have much more mental clarity. And yeah, I mean, the balance of all those things, it was, it's interesting because engaged marriage I've had since like 2009. It was always a side project. It was more or less a creative outlet and a way for us to, uh, I'd write and we'd express what was going on in our own relationship to help others. It was an extension of what we were doing at church. I wrote a book, we've done speaking. It's always been a cool thing, and it's still something that's near and dear to my heart. Fire Creek actually entered my life in 2018 at the same time all this stuff was happening. So it's kind of, I don't know if you call it ironic or divine intervention. I don't know. It's like kind of all happened at the same time.
Yeah.
But whenever I left engineering, I was doing some marketing consulting for online businesses and actually some offline businesses. It's kind of like referral stuff. Like my dentist needed marketing help and my real estate broker. And it was just like all this stuff happened that facilitated me leaving my full-time job. Well, I was shopping in a meat market and I picked up some snacks and I ended up meeting the owner and hit it off. And he's now my business partner. And
Nice.
the way it came about was I was helping him market he has butcher shops, like retail, brick and mortar meat shops. And I was helping him market those things. And then this is kind of while he was coming up with this concept for Fire Creek snacks. And I was like, man, you got to be selling these online, because that was my background. I knew digital marketing. And he's like, I really want to. I don't know how. I'm like, I'll do it. And so I more or less volunteered and I built him a website. And I was like, if this works out, let's work something out. But, let's prove the concept. And so it was honest to God, it's crazy looking back at these dates, but it was like November of 2018 when I created our Shopify site.
Nice.
And then in January of 2019, we went to our first trade show. We went down to Orlando, Florida, at the PGA Merchandise Show, just a madhouse. So we went to 12 trade shows in 2019, more travel than I've ever done.
No kidding.
Going to places like Vegas and Orlando and like places where you typically just go and destroy your diet. And so I guess I just felt this great discipline that, wow, I could travel and do this and still attend to my family and still grow this business. And then I think the third cool part of it is that Fire Creek actually fits right into the lifestyle. It's like,
right.
I basically eat low carb. It's not like I'm strict keto, but they don't have, our snack sticks don't have any sugar. They're high protein. They don't need refrigerated. So I could literally throw them in a bag and be traveling or be, between meetings. And they're great. Like in the program, we kind of limit snacking, but in my case, a lot of times they became a meal replacement because I'm like, literally on the go. I could eat 2 snack sticks and have 14 grams of protein and feel good. There's no artificial ingredients. Right, so it's just the stuff that people typically think about meat sticks. What was so cool and what drew me to this product and Ryan, my business partner, was that it was so much different. It was clean and it was consistent with these lifestyle changes that I was making outside of business. So yeah, the timing is actually kind of eerie in hindsight that it was like the month I started this program, Fit Father, was the month we launched the website for the first time.
I got chills. It all feels like so aligned. And I'm a spiritual man, so I believe that God works in perfect ways. And this really was something that was coming into your life. And I also would suspect that had you not gotten into integrity with your own health and made these changes, like it would have impacted your business in a not positive way. But because you were, it almost seemed like it was rocket fuel where you were very aligned with this and integrating it. And I think that's absolutely incredible. Now for guys, I want to ask a tactical question here for guys who do travel a lot for work. And maybe travel's picking up now, things are opening back up, whether it's work or family vacations. How did you navigate those times when you're away from your routine? Like, what did you do? And I suspect the answer is you kind of transplanted that routine on the go in some ways. But like, what have been your strategies for managing things while traveling? Absolutely.
Number one, I travel with the things I need to make protein shakes, or I'll make sure I get as close to those ingredients as I can when I get there. So that's like literally taking the scoops of protein I need for the week and putting them in a container that's travel safe, possibly bringing my blender, but if that's too much, then I might bring a shaker cup, but making sure that morning shake is always there. That's a huge thing. There were many days when I was on the road for 4 or 5 days that I didn't really have an opportunity to work out. The trade shows would be from like 6 or 7 a.m. till 6 or 7 p.m. And then you might have meetings before or after that. But by virtue of being, you're like standing and talking to people for 12 hours, that's basically a workout. I burn a lot of calories just being there, doing that, and no time to like go away and get lunch. So we were sampling snack sticks, and it was like, I guess an endorsement for the brand, and I'd be sitting behind the booth eating the same snacks. It's like, they really are good, guys, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I didn't eat as much during the day. And you're traveling, you're having business meetings, there are people are drinking, you're going out to different restaurants. And I did all those things, but I would make smarter choices. So instead of drinking like
Mhm.
6 big, heavy, dark beers, maybe I have a couple of, bourbons on the rocks sort of thing where
Mhm.
and you talk about that, like you can do that and limit the damage. Make sure I was drinking a lot of water. And when I did
Mhm.
have the opportunity, I definitely did try to get a workout in. I wasn't maybe motivated enough to go pump iron in a tiny hotel gym. So for me, that would be usually bringing running shoes and just either
Perfect.
running straight up running and seeing the city, or a lot of times I do like HIIT workouts, interval
Mhm.
training, something I could get done in 30 minutes before or after the trade show day. And then, still be able to enjoy the evening, still be able to go out and do top golf or, whatever, some things that help help make it feel like you're not going insane by being on the road for 12 weekends. So
Yeah. I mean, a huge theme that's just screaming out to me listening to you is like those couple sacred aspects of your routine. For you, the shake was sacred, and also maybe the morning movement time is
yeah,
sacred, and you can transplant those in different. They don't have to be location specific, and I think that's very powerful for guys to understand. And also the lesson too that in the hierarchy of importance, nutrition trumps formal workouts. Like we talk about that all the time in the program, right? I mean, you eat
yeah,
right. It's not like you have to exercise. You're getting daily movement. You're burning calories on your feet. Like you could leave a trade show after having lost weight. With in many cases. So that's
yeah.
really
And
powerful.
another thing we talk, in the Brotherhood about non-scale victories, and
Hmm.
this is going to sound kind of maybe weird to people, but I remember I knew I was going to these trade shows, and after the first one, I realized how taxing they were. So I went and got really good shoes, and then I also got new like dress pants because in the first trade show we could wear shorts. It was a golf show, right? But a lot of these
Hmm.
had regulations. You had to wear like business casual. I'm like, oh man, I don't feel like wearing khakis all day, and I got to stand on my feet. That means I have to wear dress shoes. I can't wear tennis shoes, and so but I went out and bought like a bunch of new pants. So I got like golf pants, basically. They're super comfortable,
Hmm.
stretchy,
Yeah,
and
lightweight,
I just
stretchy.
remember I got those, and my wife was like, "Those look good," because I had lost all this weight, and I'm like, "Yeah, I could have no way. Like, it's a whole new. It's like 2 belt loops tighter than I'd ever had. Like, so
Yeah.
I'd be at these trade shows wearing these pants, and it was kind of a self reminder. Like, if I want to still fit in these by like the last day of the show, I need to eat decent and take care of
Yeah.
myself. Like, that was a physical reminder, and I felt confident. I felt like I looked good. That I was, had taken care of myself, and felt it gave me more confidence too being in that environment because we're selling like an impulse snack item, so we're in the snack aisle.
Hmm.
You can imagine people are just coming down, especially midday, just looking for whatever, chocolate, beef jerky, anything. And so you're kind of in carnival barker mode, trying to get people's attention.
Hmm.
Hey, come over, try this out. It's different. It's not what you think it is, and I'm very much an introvert. So 12 hours of that, it was like
Yeah.
I burned a lot of energy, just the emotional stress of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny that they're like my trade show pants. That's what I always call them. And I haven't worn them in like a year because luckily I haven't had to travel, but I think they would still fit, which is good news. So,
Yeah, I think that's powerful. Even those physical feedback loops and reminders, you get that pair of pants and it just reminds you to stay on track. The scale does the same thing.
yeah.
I want to shift gears and I want to learn a little bit more about internally how these changes that you've made through the Fit Father program have changed your deep relationship with maybe your family, with yourself, and with your future and what you want to create in the back half of your life. I mean, you're coming up on 42. My dad passed away when he's 42. I think you have a full 50 back. You're midpoint, right? And it sounds like you're just revving the engine and getting started on great things coming. How has the mentality changed, and what's in store for you in the future?
Yeah, it's a great question. My mentality, I've always been optimistic. I've always been driven and achievement oriented. And so that was all very true up until 39. And that
Hmm.
2018 was like holy crap type. Like I was going to that doctor thinking there's something wrong with me, and that's scary. And of course, I have a lot of peers, I have a lot of friends, family who are in their 40s and 50s who are having significant health issues. Like I have a business, I do some business coaching, and I had a coaching client yesterday. He's probably in his mid 50s, and we're on this call, and he had canceled him and his wife, and he had canceled the call the week before, and I could tell he didn't look right. And he's like, I thought I was going to die last week. He's like, my dad died at my age of kidney disease.
Wow.
I was up 15 pounds and I couldn't urinate, and it turned out he had some kind of major kidney infection, like super high blood pressure, and they got him on meds to, kind of save his life. And I was like, man, I was talking to you 2 weeks ago and you're the happiest guy in the world out golfing. And like, yeah. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm hyper aware of
Mhm.
how blessed I am to be in the shape I'm in and have the vital stats and the blood pressures and the resting heart rates and things. And I don't take that for granted at all. So
Mhm.
I try to be a good model for my kids. My wife she doesn't run as much anymore because she kind of had some chronic injuries, but she's constantly either cycling on the Peloton, walking, running, and our kids see that. And they're very active kids. They're very healthy kids. Again, we don't eat like super clean all the time in the house, but what I hope I've left, or I'm still here, but what I hope I'm forming is a real legacy that they're gonna basically never have to encounter some of the negative things that I did from a health and self image standpoint. Some of the things that, again, I kind of just went. I felt like I was in cruise control. I've been married 20 years. I'm 42, so I've had a lot of consistency from a family and marriage standpoint. Not without hard work and setbacks, of course, um, but I kind of always took my health for granted. It was kind of like, yeah, if I can go run a marathon, I can do anything. Well, 2 years later, and you're, probably couldn't run a mile again at the time that in 2018 when
Mhm.
the stuff was going on. So I don't know. It was just a real wake up call. I never really thought I needed a program to follow. I honestly, like in college, I was writing fitness programs for other people. I was big into like, Arnold and bodybuilding and things in high
Mhm.
school. And
Yeah.
so I kind of always had that old school mentality in playing football. And so it's like, I realized I really needed the help. And I think it made me vulnerable, and it's made me humble when it comes to my health. And then that translates into all aspects of life. So I try to be
Mhm.
that kind of servant, humble leader to my family.
Yeah.
Definitely not perfect, but I think they pick up on that. Last two Fourth of Julys ago, because last year there didn't exist. But our neighborhood has a 5K, and our middle daughter is like, she would be the first to tell you she's quite healthy and skinny, but she is not athletic. She has no interest in running, and she's like, I'm gonna run. And it was like in May. She's like, I'm gonna run in the Fourth of July 5K, and I hadn't even thought about the thing. I'm like, well, yeah, I'll run in it with you. And she trained and trained and trained, and she ran like really well. And we have a photo of the two of us all sweaty. It's miserably hot here. It's always humid and hot, and just covered in sweat. And she's smiling ear to ear, and I'm smiling ear to ear. And it was just a little neighborhood 5K, but that's the type of thing that I just cherish. So
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, it's obviously her seeing you go through all the training and
yes,
proactive work that seeded that in her mind, no doubt, right? I mean,
yes,
and it's beautiful that she brought that forth through her own initiative, and that's her.
yeah.
She owned that, and I imagine that was a big experience for her.
Yeah, she's a very goal-oriented girl, and again, we have very different interests and personalities, but it was really cool to see her be like, "I'm going to do that," and she had the confidence, and she made a plan, and she did it. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I have those kind of stories for all my kids. I'm not just singling her out, but
Hmm.
that was really cool. And I remember many mornings being downstairs and just I'd take pictures and put them in the Brotherhood group. Like I'd work out on these dark mats, and just like the little, like a silhouette of a body laying on the ground where I'd done my
Yeah.
last set, and just pure sweat everywhere. And have my daughter come down after, and it hadn't dried yet. I tried to towel it up. She's like, "Your sweat, Daddy, is all over the floor." And it's like, yeah, I'm kind of proud of that. So,
Yeah. I'm proud of you for it. I've seen your sweat angels before. They're
yeah,
glorious.
sweat angels. That's it. Yeah.
So, what what is the Fit Father Brotherhood meant to you? I know you've mentioned it many times, but I think it's an aspect of the program that not a lot of people expect when they join the Fit Father Project to find. You mean you think you're getting like a meal plan and some workouts, and you
Yeah.
certainly do. But then we have this amazing, like on fire community of guys who are all going through their journeys all over the world, supporting one another. And you've been an active member, and I know you've played a big role in supporting a couple of the guys actually who've been on this podcast.
Mhm.
So what has that been a big factor in your success, and what does that mean to you, and what's that been like being a part of the Brotherhood?
It has been, and again, it's the type of thing you would ask me 2.5 years ago, and I'd be like, I do marketing. I'm in Facebook all day. I've been in tons of groups, and yeah, I don't need that stuff, and I don't need. I'm a self-driven guy. I don't need accountability,
Hmm.
but that's so far from the truth. And so what I found in there at first was, holy crap, man, has anyone ever finished the Apex 10? This guy's a sadist. Who's this Dr. Anthony? This is impossible. And you get people that have been in there for a few months, like, actually, you're going to find that you're going to be just going from like 50 minutes to 45. I couldn't believe it. So that initial support, and like, you're not alone. There's actually people 2 steps ahead of you who have done this. And then when I had some achievements, there was the idea of, it's like a sense of pride to be able to post those sweat angels and be like, hey, for anyone who's starting Apex 10, I just broke 30 minutes or whatever those thresholds are, because I was proud of it, but I also knew it was going to motivate them the same way I had been motivated. And then there's a Sunday, accountability post. And so again, like at first I'm like, am I really going to do this? Like, who's going to read it? No one cares. But I'd get in there and I'd post, and it's like, what's coming up this week for challenges, and what have you overcome in the past week? And and it kind of becomes a monotonous question, but every week's different, especially if you're traveling, and the things I was at the time. I'm like, this is actually helpful. And then the unexpected benefit was people would comment. And they'd be like, hey, I see you're traveling to Orlando. Like, here's a great thing to do. And it was just like an actual community of people. And I was like, people are actually reading these. And then there was a guy named Todd. He's from Chicago. And one time he asked if we could have a phone call. And Todd Strong. And I'd never really recognized him in the group. He was kind of he was a lurker, But he was like the exact same path as me at the exact same time. He wasn't posting, but I was. And he's like, I just had to call you and tell you, like, you hit 200, so did I. And he was like in the golf industry, so we were actually to talk business. And I was like, you didn't even post. He's like, I know, but basically you were like my surrogate. Like, I could see what you were doing. And so now, even now, 2.5 years later, to be honest, I'm not putting Sunday accountability posts in there, but maybe I should. But I am constantly looking for opportunities to give back and give people feedback. Yeah. There's someone named Tony recently. He was a brand new member, and he was like describing his life and his vices and the things that were holding him back. I'm like, dude, this almost to the same pounds. Like, you're a little older than I was, but like, you are me 2.5 years ago. And I said, I'm going to be actually recording a podcast. And he's all excited, and he's like, I want to hear your story because it sounds just like mine. And I said, well, I'll let you know when it publishes, But so yeah, it's different than any community I've been in. I have my own communities, right? Like for engaged marriage and other things, and they're cool. But there's something about, I guess it's just the similar life path that we're all in. Like, we're all kind of dealing with family issues and work or business at the same time as our health, and it's just a very relatable group in that way.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. I draw so much inspiration personally from that group too. It's
cool seeing you in there too. I mean, you're not just the figurehead who's doing workout videos. Like, you get in there and you're commenting, and and I think that's in some way there's this like, man, if I post this, Dr. Anthony will comment. Like, that's so cool. It's like so fulfilling because we draw so much inspiration from you and the leadership that you provide.
Likewise, right back at you. So my final question is, if you could give yourself some words of wisdom when you were starting out, or even a guy that maybe is starting to get some momentum, thinks it's time to make a change, feels that little ember of a spark, but is not fully sure he can pull it off, what would you say to that man? What piece of advice would you give him?
I would say, one, it's related to that point in his journey, but it's really probably the best life advice somebody gave me, and it's what made me actually take the leap away from full-time engineering to my own thing. And that is that, with very few exceptions, there are no permanent decisions in life. So it's kind of like, what's the worst that can happen? Commit to doing this for a week, maybe a day, a month at the most. And if you don't like it, you can always just not do it. Like, so in my case, like, well, I could leave engineering, and if I'm no good at self-employment, I can just go get another engineering job. Like, why am I putting so much of my identity and my life and into this decision? And I think the same is true with the health journey. People want perfectionism, and they want like immediate results. And the reality is, it takes work, and it's not easy. And so I think not having this permanence that, like, oh man, if I say I'm going to do this, I'll never be able to have a beer again, or I'll never be able to eat, a piece of pizza again. Saying, no, like, follow the plan for that week, that month, and what is very likely going to happen. And you can decide for yourself. is that you're actually going to like it, and you're going to like the results you're getting, and it's going to become this like flywheel of momentum, and you're not going to want to deviate. It's like you're going to, because you're getting so much benefit out of it. So I think that's one thing, is like, don't make it such a weighty decision. Like, try it. There's tons and tons and tons of men and women who have been in front of you and have gotten results. So there's a very good chance you're also going to get results. Yeah, but don't like sweat it so much. Just like, go try it. I can almost guarantee you, if you do more than what you're doing now, you're going to feel a lot better than you do today.
Yeah. Man, powerful advice. I'm going to take that to heart too, especially when you're overthinking anything. It's so true. And it is amazing too that the results that you do start to get and feeling better turns into intrinsic motivation. And then you get this, like you call it, a flywheel. That's exactly what it is. And it's obviously what's carried you nearly 3 years strong now. And Dustin, I'll just say this: I'm so proud of you, and I'm so happy for you. And I'm so excited for you. At all the things that you're creating, all the things you figured out for yourself. And I know in my heart that your routine is yours. Like, this is your system now. It's not, it's the Fit Father Project, sure, but it's the Dustin plan, and you figured that out, and that's with you for life. And it makes me so damn happy. It's like, thank you for working this thing and being the kind of guy we built this program for, and coming on here and sharing the wisdom. I can't wait to get this episode out to more guys. I think a lot of guys are going to relate, especially busy guys, who you can do it all. You can have a thriving business. You can make a big life change. And Dustin, you're living proof of that. And we need more Dustins out there. So thanks for being here, my friend. I appreciate this so much. I can't wait to get this episode out.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you, Dr. Anthony. I appreciate everyone listening, and people in the Brotherhood, those who are just thinking about joining, and they're just kind of learning about this for the first time, like I was when I heard you on a podcast a couple years back. Yeah, go take advantage of the free resources, give it a shot, and see how it makes you feel. And if it makes you feel good, then maybe you want a full structured plan and a community, and all the things that have helped me so much.
Thanks, Dustin. Appreciate you. We'll see you on the next episode of Fit Father Project Podcast. Thanks for being, everyone.